This video, at least for now, is the last video I'm going to be making where I make Pokemon teams for characters. And in this video, if you couldn't tell, I'm doing Minecraft characters. And by characters, I mean characters and enemies and bosses and just all that. So if you haven't seen the other 3 videos I've made by this point, I've been making them over the last few weeks. I am essentially taking characters from different game series, and I'm assigning 6 Pokemon all of one type to them so that they have kind of like a Pokemon gym leader team. Anyway, I'm just going to get right into it, starting with, of course, Steve, who I gave a rock-type team that would consist of Garganacl as the ace, because it's pretty much just a Minecraft Pokemon, especially its pre-evolution, which looks a lot like a Minecraft frog, but Garganacl itself kind of looks like the Minecraft blocks. And then also Stonjourner, because Stonjourner is literally just Garganacl, or I guess the other way around since it came first. Then Sudowoodo to represent the trees that are in Minecraft, then Colossal to represent furnaces, because that's a big part of the game, then Carbink to represent diamonds, or just mining, and all of the ores, and lastly Crustle, because it also just looks like a Minecraft block. Next up is Iron Golem, who I gave a ground-type team. Not a steel-type team, a ground-type team. I wanted to do steel, but it honestly worked better if ground, mainly because I wanted to make the ace Golem, because its name is literally Golem, and an Iron Golem also has that word in its name. And then also Golurk is another ground type, which is also based on a golem, and again Iron Golem is a golem, so I put it there too. And then also Iron Treads, because it has iron in its name. Then Steelix, because it's kind of made of iron, pretty much, just like an Iron Golem is, and it's kind of made of different parts, or like pieces of iron put together, kind of like how you make an Iron Golem. Then Claydol, because it's also like an Iron Golem, it's a sentient creature made out of materials, but Claydol is clay and Iron Golem is iron, of course. And lastly is Excadrill, because I kind of didn't have anything else to do, and I just thought it kind of works. I'm not even going to try and make it make sense, so let's just pretend it does. Anyway, next up is the Ender Dragon, who I gave a flying type team, and this is the only time I've done this in the whole series, but the ace is specifically a shiny. It's shiny Charizard. I was originally going to make the ace Iron Jugulus, because it's black like the Ender Dragon, but then I thought Charizard itself looks more from like a shape standpoint to the Ender Dragon than Iron Jugulus does, and then if it's shiny as black, then it works even better. So that's it. And then I still added Iron Jugulus, it's just not the ace. Then I also added Bombardier because it drops rocks down like bombs, and I was thinking, like, first of all, there's the little bomb things you have to blow up that heal the Ender Dragon, but also the Ender Dragon shoots its dragon breath at you, which is kind of like a bomb. Then Hisuian Braviary, because it has that black and purple color scheme like the Ender Dragon does. Then also Dragonite, just because it's a dragon. And lastly Minior, which I put to represent those bomb things you have to destroy as well, because it kind of looks like those, especially the pink one. Then I did the Wither, who I gave a dark type team, where the ace would be Hydreigon, because they are both black 3-headed creatures. And this team also has Iron Jugulus, because it also fits here for the same reason. Then Houndoom, which I kind of put to represent a Wither skeleton more than the Wither itself, because it has bones on it and it's black. And then King Gambit, which is also kind of there to represent the Wither skeleton, because it's a sword and they hold swords. And then Crocodile, which I put there to represent Soul Sand, because you have to use that and the Wither skeleton heads to summon the Wither. And Crocodile is a ground type, and that's pretty much the closest to sand of all the types. And lastly, Bombardier, and that was also in the Ender Dragon team, but it fits here too because the Wither pretty much just throws bombs at you. I guess they're skulls that blow up, but still bombs, and Bombardier has bomb in its name. Then I did a Vindicator, or Vindictator, I don't know how you pronounce that. Apparently it's Vindicator, or Vindicator, according to my autocorrect at least, but I think Vindictator sounds better, so whatever. Anyway, I give it a bug-type team, specifically because I wanted to make Cleavor the ace, because they both have axes. But then I also added Scizor and Pinsir, because they also have kind of like weapons, and they are bugs. And obviously the team is a bug-type team. Scissor's weapons are its scissor-like claws, and Pinsir are just its pincers, but I was just trying to relate that to the axe, since they're also kind of sharp. Then I added Wormadam, specifically the leaf cloak one, or the grass cloak, I don't know what you call it, just this one, to represent the woodland mansion, because it's in the woods, and the leaf cloak one is covered in leaves, so you would probably find it in the woods. I thought that made sense. Anyway, I also added Fortress to represent the woodland mansion, because I've pretty much made Fortress on one of the teams in every single video I've done for the same reason. Every time I've added Fortress, it's because the character lives in a big fortress, and that's what the woodland mansion is, so Fortress is on the team. And lastly, Excelgor, because Vindicators run pretty fast, and Excelgor is pretty fast. Then I did Skeletons, who the ace would be Decidueye, not Hisuian, just normal, and this would make it a ghost-type team. Decidueye is obviously there because it's an archer like the Skeletons are. Then I added Cursula, Alolan Marowak, Skeledirge, and Houndstone, because all of them have bones, or they just literally are skeletons. And obviously we're talking about the skeleton here. And lastly, Dragapult, because it's also an undead thing that shoots stuff like the skeleton. Then I did the Witch, who would have a psychic-type team led by Hatterene, because Hatterene is pretty much just a witch. Then I also had Galarian Slowking, because it's also kind of like a witch. Then Meowstic, and also Galarian Slowbro, and Delphox, and Oranguru. All of them I was just kind of like, okay, they either are based on witches, kind of look like witches, or are related to witches in some way, so I'll put them on the witches team. Oranguru is kind of the least like a witch, but when I looked at it, I kind of just thought of like the swamp biome and how the witch huts can be in them, because Oranguru kind of looks swampy, if that's even a word. Then I did the Warden, who I gave a normal type team, which would be led by Exploud, because they are both bipedal creatures that yell really loud. I also added Snorlax and Slacking, because I was thinking like most of the time the Warden is just sleeping or hiding in the ground. I don't know if it's sleeping, but I kind of just assumed it is, and Snorlax and Slacking are always sleeping. I don't know, makes sense to me. Then I added Kecleon, because it can become invisible, and I kind of related that to Slacking and Snorlax as well, because, like I said, the Warden, most of the time, it's just hiding away in the ground, you don't see it, and then when you get near it, it comes up and attacks you, but also because, for Kecleon specifically at least, it has that darkness effect, so you get blinded pretty much and can't see it anyway. I also added Diggersby, because the Warden climbs or digs itself out of the ground, and Diggersby whole thing is that it digs and has dig in its name. And lastly, I added Obstagoon, because the Warden is one of the biggest obstacles in the game, I'd have to say, because of how strong it is, and Obstagoon, its name comes from obstacle. Lastly, actually not lastly, second to lastly, the Elder Guardian, who I gave a poison-type team. I was obviously going to give it a water-type team, but then I switched to poison because Overquill looks the most like an Elder Guardian out of any Pokemon, so I had to do that. Then I added Quillfish, the normal one, Toxapex, Tentacruel, Revavroom, and Skuntank. And the first three I listed are there because they also kind of look like the Elder Guardian, specifically just Quillfish and Toxapex. Tentacruel is more there because, if I'm not mistaken, the Elder Guardians and the normal Guardians, they hunt squids for some reason, and Tentacruel, or Cruel, is a squid. Or I guess it's more of a jellyfish, but close enough. Revavroom is there because it's the only poison type I could find that only has one eye, or is cycloptic, like the Elder Guardian. And lastly, Skuntank, I added it because the Elder Guardian shoots lasers out of its eye, and Skuntank shoots sprays of poison and stuff kind of out of its head as well, even though it's actually out of its tail. It's just that its tail is touching its head, so I thought that was pretty similar. And lastly, I made a team for the Drowned, which is obviously going to be a water-type team. It's led by Basculegion, because it's a water ghost type, and obviously the Drowned is a undead creature that lives in the water, which is pretty much what Basculegion is. Or I guess Basculegion isn't really the undead part, it's just that it brings souls with it. Then I also added Jellicent because it's also a water ghost type. And then I thought this was cool, I added Amistar and Empoleon to represent the Nautilus shells and the tridents that Drowns usually hold, because that's pretty much what both of those Pokemon are based on. Then I added Araquanid because it has that bubble around its head and it breathes underwater, or just, it literally breathes in that bubble. And I was thinking like the Drowned can breathe underwater, so Araquanid has the bubble around its head. I guess that makes sense. And lastly, Gastrodon, because it's a water ground type, and I was thinking like the Drowned, it's something that's supposed to be on the ground, but it's now in the water. Water ground. That definitely makes sense. Yeah, those are all the teams I made for Minecraft. I was probably going to make more, but I forget what happened. I probably either just didn't want to make more, or I ran out of ideas. Anyway, that's all I've got for this for now. If you like this, consider liking, subscribing, and commenting and all that, and thanks for watching.